my hair right. Yeah, perfect. We can go.
I
Good
just
to
I
go.
just shaved mine off. It was nice and easy. Sorry about that, everybody. The first few seconds it was me shaving my head. Right. Welcome to Ask a Leader. My name's Gavin S. Redman, and today it's going to be about this. Have you ever had to deal with contracts in sales? Did you enjoy it? Was that short, fast, fun, or easy? Any of those above? Well, if that's not the case, then I've got the right person on the call today. Welcome, Alexander. Pleasure to meet you. Would you just like to introduce yourself and give the people some of your background?
Yes,
Personal, otherwise, it's up to you.
thank you, Gavin. Yeah, absolutely. Nice introduction. A contract's nice and easy, usually not. So my background is in investment banking, and I came across lots of contracts back in the days, and it was never fun and easy. And over the years, some notion formed in my head that I need to do something about that problem, and that ended up founding Top Legal and optimizing the way you deal with contracts. Initially, I mean, coming from investment banking, your next question is probably going to be, so investment banking, and now you're doing contracts for sales, where we figured software for investment banking contracts is a bit too complex, and there's just one or twice of these contracts per year or per month. So we were looking at some issue where the problem was even larger, and where this perennial problem is always there, never going away, because contracts are here to stay. I mean, for the foreseeable future. Yeah, you need those things to make a sale, and that's why we set up the company. In a nutshell.
Okay, so I mean, I've been in the financial sector too, so mergers and acquisitions, that type of thing, that isn't the solution. It's the sales side of it. So it's like the 5 typical contracts that we all have to do, you know, NDAs, license agreements, that type of stuff. So DPAs and all the rest. That's your sweet spot, isn't it?
Absolutely. Anything that's in repetitive business, that's dynamic. So you're selling a product that you want, that's configurable, that you need to put out there with people, a sales service, a software service, a software product that comes with service, and you want to create a contract to that product. It usually ends up in, so who has the right contract for that? Are we actually allowed to sell a certain product? So that's the first and foremost problem. Do we have that product still on offer? And this is when we spoke to investors initially, that resonated quite a lot with them, because I've had salespeople selling products that we don't have on offer anymore, and we were selling service.
That's never happened.
And the problem is not really the contract itself, but the aftermath. So you have it in writing, agreeing to deliver a certain product for a certain price. But then you look around, so can anyone provide me with that product or service? We are not selling this product for the past 5 years, and that's being quite hard to come back from, because you then you probably need to pay back the money. You have a disgruntled client, and that's something you want to avoid from the outside, right? So yeah, that's the first problem. Setting the product that you have, and then creating a contract that actually fits to that product and service. The accompanying service that you're offering, is the pricing right? The liability that comes with the service, because maybe some services are sold with a certain liability clause, others are not, right? So this is also something that needs to be aligned. And if you're on the job on the first day and you're making a sale, and then you need to go, where was this contract again? I've never been in touch with these contracts. I never really liked it. Then you need to dig through all the organization to find the right contract, and it takes days till you can actually send this out. And
I think you're being very nice there. It just takes days.
Actually, we talk
in a 6-week contract search.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that
we did eventually find it, but we had to go back to the Iron Mountain store of the original paper that we had that was offsite. They went through that and they found it, but it took 6 weeks.
Actually,
right.
We're working with the companies, and they were saying the other day, well, it takes us a year to close that contract. So this was the longest I've heard it would take a contract to close at the moment. This is the record.
I think you've been sheltered. You're a lucky person, but I get the point. So, I mean, just before we go, just move on. I think there's one story which I loved, which I heard of, which was you did a presentation for was it Telefonica or Pitch Fest or something?
Yeah,
Could,
something like that. Yeah,
could
yeah.
you
It
just
was a pitch fest.
relate that story, please? Because it's so it's so good.
Yeah, it was actually quite hilarious because it was me trotting into that meeting with a little briefing. So I said, yeah, you need to hold a presentation eventually. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. And I thought usually these events there were hundreds of people there, and I thought this is gonna, everyone is gonna introduce themselves, and we're gonna talk for hours on what this pitch fest is all about, and talking about the company itself. And I was sitting there having my breakfast and my croissant and munching away on that. And I, as I said, I expected there's going to be some, maybe in an hour or two. But then actually things were speeding up quite a bit, and I all of a sudden I found myself getting rid of my coffee quickly and being called upon stage. Said, "Yeah, Alex, it's your turn now. Please introduce us to Top Legal. Here's your laser pointer. Your slides are up already. Off you go."
Yeah, and I think one pertinent thing is you won the Pitch Fest, didn't you? I think.
Yeah, we did. And someone after, and this is something we haven't spoken about when we first chatted. Someone came up to me after the whole thing and said, "You were so cool. How did you do that?" And I thought, well, to be frank, the answer to this question, I didn't have time to get nervous because I didn't expect it to be called on the stage, so I just talked, and that did the job.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that's relevant there. It's usually people that know what they're talking about. If they're just asked, "Can you tell me something?" they can rattle it off and can do it fairly quickly.
Absolutely.
And it's those that ramble, prepared or otherwise, that actually don't know what they're talking about. So, with that, let's get into. We already talked a little about who you serve, but I'd like to know your why for this, because I understand that you said, right, okay, you'd seen the pen, but why are you doing it personally? Because I know you're a first-time business owner, so usually there's something that sort of got you off your seat and said, "I've had enough of this." I'd love to know what that why is.
That's a hard question. It's multifaceted. Why I'm doing this. I mean, I love the challenge. I love the challenge per se. Setting up a business is extremely hard. If you contemplating of setting up a business, I think twice. It's really hard. It's not only one moving target. It's a moving target on a moving target on a moving target. So it's incredibly hard. But you asking me why I'm not why did I do it in the first place? I wanted to go for the challenge. I was looking for a challenge. I think back until then I was working in corporate structures. And in corporate structures you usually run against wall if you eventually either you realize it or you don't, or you realize it later. Eventually going to run against walls. And if you want to break out of these walls, you being again thrown obstacles in your way. And if in these large organizations, it becomes quite hard to be also develop an innovative behavior to certain things. So you can be on trodden paths, but it's very hard to leave those paths. And this is why I thought I need my own thing. And then the next thing was, what did I consider particularly challenging, and what is something I feel I want to provide a solution for. And this is where contracts came into mind, and how to solve the problem of negotiating and closing contracts effectively.
I think what stood out to me was when I was watching on YouTube your onboarding process, the 3 phases. I think it was step forward. You actually mentioned the word, "This is fun," and the way you were saying it It actually sounded as though you thought that was fun. So that is a good thing. Enthusiasm for something. That I love that.
Absolutely, it is still fun.
You're
It
going
is
to have to
still.
convince me over that one. I'm not. I'm not
I'm
immediately.
still smiling. It's Monday.
Keep smiling. It's Monday. Yeah, it's every day of the week if it was contracts for me. So I'd be curious. Obviously, you've talked about the challenge, but how do you actually see then leadership personally? And also, how do you then project that to your team? Because I mean, you're obviously first time. You've got a lot of moving parts, and I agree with you there. But how do you project that to the outside world? What's it mean to you?
Yeah, leadership. It's a big topic. I mean, that lots have been said about this. My personal interpretation, which
Always
probably is
is.
quite whimsical. I would sum it up in inspiring people around you, because I mean, from experience, you cannot run a company if you need to go after everyone and everything. It's just too many things that you need to be attentive of, and need to look after. So leadership for me is building a team around you that thinks alike, that is proactive, and shares certain mindset, and you can align them. As I said, aligning a team is also guiding the team towards achieving some common goals, and fostering an environment that's conducive to collaboration. And as I said, you don't want to go hunting people for certain tasks. You want to inspire them, set goals, and make these people to live up to those goals. That's leadership. Everything else is just, I would say, management, more, I don't know, administration.
Mhm. Do you was there somebody in particular that helped you along your journey before you became an entrepreneur that sort of demonstrated that to you?
Absolutely. I mean, these are our investors are actually good examples of how good leadership works. I mean, you don't
Mm,
come in here and say, "Hey, Alex, you need to do it this way," but they ask questions like, "Where do you want to go? What do you want to turn Top Legal into?" And we go into goal setting and determine what the vision and the mission of the company would be, and we then jointly line out a path. And I think this is a lot the better approach, and rather saying, "Hey, this is what you need to do," particularly if you're facing a dominant person who could potentially find it hard to accept another person's opinion. And this is really a challenge, right? Convincing a dominant person that this is the goal you want to aspire, and this is where you want to go to, and this is something you cannot force people to do. It's never a good idea. I think you would not rather need to lead in a way, show the way, and then let them go.
mm, mm. So you have some strategic investors. So that means the people that actually get involved to assist you from sort of a mentoring perspective. So you have that on board.
Absolutely. And those people are, I mean, they've been running organizations in the tens and 20,000 of people, and from that you can learn so much. I mean, I would only recommend anyone to hang out and approach people who have been in a leadership situation, have been leading and guiding people. I mean, you quickly find out what sort of leadership style you are, and whether those people are the people you would match your personal style, and then you can ask them for advice on the
Mm,
topic,
mm,
and how to become a better leader.
mm, mm. Then that leads quite well into the next question, which is, what have you seen on your journey that you've had so far, are the upsides of leadership? I always ask this question. We'll come to the other one in a minute. So the upsides first. What,
Um,
what do you see as a plus when it comes
I yeah, this, I mean, it's quite obvious. If you have a team that's performant, uh, this is definitely an upside of leadership. If you invest time, I mean, leadership is investing time into other people, into your organization, and that organization is running smoothly, and those people are actually doing what you expect them to do. I mean, this is really the upside of leadership, and this is exactly, I think, one of the hardest tasks on this planet. Align people behind your vision and make them move in one direction. No, I like to go to pursue this goal over there, and I want to go over there. Because it's incredibly hard to align everybody on the same goal and move in the same direction. It would not work otherwise. And I think it's one of the biggest, I mean, it's one of the hardest tasks in an organization. Running a company it is exactly that job, because I see it in my daily work. What that entails is really herding a flock of sheep. It is really hard. And but the benefits are extreme, right? If you have a fully functional team, everyone is in a flow, everyone knows what to do, everyone has their goal and performs against those goals. It's magnificent. It's a flow state, I would say. I mean, you're never there. You can always optimize to get even better. It's an asymptotical behavior that you have here, but you try to move the team further to this 100% goal towards performance.
Do you think that when you say it, I mean, I'm just going to highlight that because I think of all the people I've spoken to that are leaders, they're always talking about better. They're never, and when they're talking about 100%, very often they're talking about 100% in certain things, and the rest is just good enough to get done. But they'll always then say, right, we're still looking to get better, and that's never quite, it's something that everybody aspires to. Do you think that's right?
I would agree on better, never there. Yeah, obviously, you need to invest a lot of time into better, and yeah, you never there. Certain things, yeah, I mean, you need to have a certain focus, right? There's a list of priorities that you need to have in your mind. Certain things you need to invest a lot of time to move the team, move the people, but there are other things that you can neglect. I mean, when you really need to be aware of what time, what points you investing your time in, and what is not so important. This should be an active decision. Because if you're not doing that, it's going to haunt you eventually.
Like the ghost of Christmas past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then you'd sort of mentioned it right at the beginning. If you're thinking about doing a business, consider this. So the downsides of leadership. So maybe it would be good to hear that from you that's still got that fresh in the mind, not like myself who've been around for 20 or 30 years. So how do you see it? The downsides.
Downside of leadership. Yeah, I think managing conflicts, and I mean, eventually to optimize certain behavior, you're going to encounter conflicts, and that's, I think, not a pretty thing. You need to be aware of that, and you need to try to solve those conflicts. That's certainly one of the downsides of leadership. I mean, you're in the midst of everything, right? You cannot ignore certain things. You need to be aware of everything, particularly when it comes to conflicts between people. And sometimes these things can't be solved by the people who are involved. I mean, puppy can't clean up its own mess, right? So you need to be aware. I need to be in the midst and clean this up eventually. Otherwise, again, it's going to haunt you. If you let this run, you're not getting to better as an outcome. It just stagnates, or even worse.
So it's for you, it's that having that difficult conversation when something is not the way it should be, and how you handle that. That's something you find is the downside.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, if you can't solve this conflict, I mean, there are people in there that cannot be managed, right? And then you need to get rid of them. I mean, for the sake of the organization, having unproductive people or people who are constantly in conflict. I mean, it does not necessarily need to be the people. It can also be we have a misfit between the organization and the person, and you need to step in between and say, we do have a misfit. It's not you, it's us. But we can't have this in an organization, and it's not a pretty thing. That's something that you enjoy doing, right? Getting rid of people. I mean, I suppose there's some people that enjoy that, but I still find it incredibly hard, because you still, I mean, for the sake of the organization, to say we cannot do that because the organization needs to move on, but you're moving in a different direction, so we need to part ways here.
Yeah, I think it's one of the toughest things is to draw that line. I think it is very hard. So I'd agree with you there.
Absolutely, it's expensive and it's a hard thing. I mean, hiring new people and getting rid of them is a very, very expensive decision that you need to take.
Yeah, I think it's not just in money. I think this is the thing that people miss is everybody thinks that owners or business owners are just talking about money when they say that.
No,
and then very often they're not.
No.
They're talking about the actual personal side of it too. It's just people assume it's just money. It's not.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, this is a secondary factor. I mean, you as a human, and you need to step in and talk to this person. Well, your path here in this organization is not going anywhere. It's a tough decision and a tough call. I mean, if you're not moved by that, you have probably done a lot of these talks already. But I suppose even if you have done many of these discussions, it's still going to hurt.
Yes.
And I think it's something you need as a leader, because you want to inspire, and inspire also comes from the heart, right? And if you don't have that heart, I mean, the upside is motivating people, but also the downside is feeling these emotions when you need to let people go, right? If you don't have this feeling, you might find it hard to become or be a good leader.
Yeah, I'd agree. So I'm just going to pause it there for a second, and I'm just going to call out the sponsor, which is Specular Consulting. They are a company that does IT transformation, IT PMO, project management, and cybersecurity on a fractional basis. So that if you are scaling a professional services organization, think of it a bit like an orchestra, and they have different sections where it will be brass, strings, and the percussion. And as you grow, there's a hole in the orchestra where people need to go. And 99% of the time, there's never that half person that you can get. You are actually looking for people that are doing something for a certain period of time that know what they're doing. And that's where Specular Consulting comes in. And their web address is specularconsulting.com. So I'll repeat that and spell Specular to make sure everybody sees this. SPECULO consulting.com. And with that, that's the shout out for the sponsor of the live, and we'll get on to the next question. So thanks for bearing with me there, Alex. Right. So now it gets to the juicy questions.
There we go.
which I've heard loads of different answers to, so I'm curious. How would you suggest somebody becomes a leader?
As in, how would I spot a person, or how would
you spot a person, and if that person wants to be a leader, what should they act like? Because I remember at the beginning of my career, I got told, I wanted to do well, and I did all the technical stuff and never got anywhere. So I'd be curious. This is the reason why I asked this question. So is there something practical that you would suggest to become a leader?
Again, the juicy questions. How would I mean, starting first with how would I spot anyone to become a leader? I think these people a leader, in my eyes, needs to be incredibly hungry for new information. As I said, get out of these trodden paths, looking for new innovative ways of working. I think that's one thing, but also in the way they work and inspire others around them. So you need to be hungry in a way for new information, but also in the presence of new information, you need to digest it, learn from it, get better, and move others along that journey. Well, basically communicating your improvement, in communicating what we've learned, sharing this with others, and enabling others to get better. I think that's how what we've done here in the team. And leads would also be able to structure work for others,
Mm.
give others room to grow. Maybe not put themselves in the limelight themselves all the time, but put
Mm.
others on that spot and recognize others for their work.
Mm.
Because a leader might not be as in a individual contributor, or certainly is not an individual contributor, can be, but I think the most and foremost, most important goal of a leader is to enable others. And I think this is something that I need to see in the daily work and how to behave when working with others.
Mm.
How would I help others to become a leader? Second part of the question is, when I see that someone has the potential, I would just throw them into the situation where they can really prove themselves, really structure the work, structure the process, help others. I think becoming and being a leader is something like any other discipline. Is you learn best when doing it. You don't even not necessarily need to be leading thousands of people. You can start with one person. I mean, this is what father-child relationship can also be, and at some point you are a leader for that little child. I mean, you need to be a role model, and this can be also in an organizational context where you have a few people that are looking up to you, that you can help become a better worker, contributor, individual contributor, but also maybe manager, also leader. And I think this is something you can only do if you throw it out there. Just do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, you're a father, so you obviously know what kids are like. The difference is they ask loads of questions, as you know, and then they act the way you are demonstrating it to them, like almost a mirror image, which I think a lot of people don't realize that happens at a business level too.
Yeah,
With
absolutely.
but people don't tell you because, in quotes, we're adults. We don't do that.
Yeah.
But if you respect somebody, and they're from it, if you are talking about some sort of they have some sort of authority in a business perspective, people do, even though it's unconscious, which I think is incredibly difficult to understand when you are at that. You've got stuff that you're doing. For you, it's a normal day. So how do you sort of counteract that and sort of pinch yourself and say, right, okay, people are watching me. People are watching me. How do you keep that top of mind? I'll be curious on what if you have a system, or if you think about that, is that something like that?
That I think is also a very hard process. I mean, this is something you see yourself best not by observing yourself, because that is very hard. I mean, you can be on speak to a camera, but I think if you in conversation with other people on your level, or with your team, with your partner, you see your strengths and weaknesses, not when you're working by yourself. I think this is the key ingredient. How do you hold yourself up to those standards? Constant feedback, and this is like I mean, even though we're adults, I think we're still learning all the time. And how do kids learn? Watching others, constant corrections of certain behavior. Yeah, and then what you said earlier, surround yourself with other leaders, mentors that can help you correct certain behavior. I think that's the best advice that you that I have. I mean, you can self-reflect, and what helps me personally is writing things down in a journal. Write down how people reacted, and then you don't see it on an individual day, but if you go through the pages over weeks and months, you can then see a trend, a thread emerging, and maybe you can gather some information out of that. But again, doing this by yourself is incredibly difficult. That's why people go see a shrink, right? You need someone to talk to, right? It's not that you need a shrink to run an organization, but
I've been
might as well help.
Twice.
It does help. I mean, these people are not called shrinks; they're called, I don't know, mentors, consultants. They come with different names, but eventually they help
Human
you get
beings
fit.
that observe, I think, and provide good advice. Okay, so you've actually answered the seventh one, which is how do you create leaders? So I'm not going to. I'll just cross that one out. But the last one is always: are there any questions I've not asked with regard to leadership that I should be asking?
Are there any questions that you haven't asked?
Do you think I should be asking?
I think I think the topic of failing, I think, is incredibly important in leadership, because things don't go right all the time, right? And I think this is also something that is an attribute a leader should have, like recovering from certain events, because things are for sure not going the way you want them. As I said, I was talking earlier about the moving target on a moving target. All these things are incredibly hard to hit, which makes it challenging, rewarding, and fun. But for sure, there's certain things that you're going to fail at, and recovering from that event, having a recovery strategy in place can be extremely helpful. Not whining about the past, but looking at solutions, like how can I grow stronger from that. I think there are many examples in the past where people, successful people who have become great leaders, have failed so and so many times and have recovered from that misery. But this is again a very hard job to do, and I think that's a very important trait that one should have, recovering from failure.
So, do you use something as a framework, or is that? It sounded as though you were fairly specific about that you maybe use something.
Yeah, I think again, what helps me personally is writing things down, and you can go back at it, read through it, and again, I think it's better not to be alone in this, because if it comes crashing down, there's a lot of weight on your shoulder, and it's better to help you, have someone around who can help you lift those burden again. I think that's that is extremely important, and maybe also understanding, if you go through your journal, what did I do wrong, and is there some information that I can glean from what I've written down there, and maybe did I take a wrong turn here and there, and without any written notes, your memory is often deceiving you, and you can't rely on them. So it's better to have a written form, and not to be alone with your thoughts. I think is also very, very important, because things can get pretty nasty.
Yeah, I think now the third time I've heard that. Okay, with that, the grilling is over.
I wouldn't consider it as grilling. I thought this was a fun conversation to have, and I think everyone should have this conversation, and should have answers to this question that you asked.
I think the one reason why I started, I mean, I do other things. My business is something else, but Ask a Leader I did because on social and the younger generation, and I class you as that because I'm a very old person in comparison.
No, you're lying.
There's a reason why I've shaved this off, because it's all white. And very often the stuff that gets clicked or shown on social is the negative stuff. And I always believe something that my grandfather said: when good people say nothing, bad things happen.
Absolutely.
So Ask a Leader is nothing other than to demonstrate, okay, there's 5.5. So for example, in the UK, there's 5.5 million small businesses. All of them are somebody's mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, and they're really nice people. And that's the majority of the business world. Whereas then there's some that end up on social media for the wrong reasons. So this is sort of a reaction to that, to, say, okay, these are real people. They are actually trying to, help and assist. Oddly enough, none of that is negative, and all of them are looking to serve in some way to solve a really hard problem. So respect is all I can say. But
let me add 2 sentences on that. I mean, sharing negative things is very easy, right? Doing positive things and sharing positive emotions is very, very hard. It is like building a statue. Building a statue is a very, very hard job to do. Destroying it, very easy, can be done in a split second. Same as social media. Negative things, they click extremely well. Extremely great reach, but again, easy, or easier than building something that's nice and positive, and builds people up. So you're doing something that's probably very hard, extremely hard, but you're creating something. I think, yeah. With that, I finish my.
You'll stop while you're ahead. My grandfather always says the truth has a walking stick, but lies have legs. Very fast ones.
True that.
True. Okay. That, yeah. Well, I always say at this stage, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate you and appreciate it for coming on. Obviously, what I'll be doing is I'll just so everybody knows, obviously it's going to be on LinkedIn. It's also on YouTube on the Scaling Game. If you want to look at the live uncut, there's a reason why I'm doing that. Yes, I know it's not fantastic for YouTube, but it means you can actually see what Alex and I have spoken without any edits, the whole thing, the way it was actually live. So that's why it goes out live, for that simple reason, so that nobody can say, well, that's being cut and edited. No, it hasn't. Because it goes straight out live to YouTube and straight out live to LinkedIn. That's with all my mistakes, with the technical stuff, all the rest of the business, and also any ums and ahs I may have been making. So I apologize for that, anybody. And with that, fantastic to see you, Matt. I wish you all the success in the world, and I'll be in touch with regard to recordings, etc. And I'm just going to end the session now. If you could stay on for a second.
Sure, thank you.